And now, coming to you from the Pensado Media Center, powered by Westlake Pro.
Creating great songs, more Luke Laird on that topic. Mixers are pouring in for our Indaba contest. Come see us in Toronto and New York, and a brand new ITL. You're at the place. It's Pensado's place.
Always happy when we travel, you know?
Yeah, got stuff coming up.
It looks like a good trip this year. Hope you guys can make it. We'd love to see you, hang out with you,
Coast.
talk to you. Yeah.
East Coast, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's going to be starting to get chilly, too. I like that. A little fall weather and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I could use a snowstorm right about now.
Yeah, given where, particularly today, it's hot.
You know what? We probably should tell parts of the country that we're keeping them in our prayers and wish them all the best,
sure.
You know?
For sure. We talked to a few folks in Florida.
Yeah, my families are all fine.
Everybody's good?
Yeah.
And I talked to Lou Diaz and Greg and Kenny Cordoba and a few others. Yeah. Just to make sure they're okay. And so far, so far so good. So
good.
Blessings to all you guys. Shall we go ahead with it?
Let's do it.
Hey, everybody, great to see you. Tons on the calendar for the month of October, so we'll share that stuff with you. But first, our partners, 1,500 or nothing. Yay, the Blackbird Academy, Westlake Pro, Avid, DTS, Lander, and Fab Factory. A lot of you rocking the mixes on the Indaba contest. Very cool. The track is Havoc. Dave will be doing his serious judge thing. We're excited about it. And you got...
wait a minute. It's going to be really hard this time.
It's going to be tough?
Yeah.
All right, crank up, guys.
Being like sweet.
Master Blaster's going to bring it, so you got to bring it.
Good song. Right?
It's a really cool song. And plenty of stuff to win, including being on the show like we did last week. It was really cool. Enter right here, indabamusic.com, and you can see all the info, prizes, tracks, stems, everything. Only a couple more weeks, so get popping. Yeah. Now, let's grab those calendars for October. First up, October 14th in Toronto, Imsta Festa is presenting Pensado's Place live. And if you show up, you can win software like Melodyne from Celemony, stuff from Fab Filter, Isotope, Avid, Beat Skills, plus hang out with our super, super talented stars. It's going to be a blast for sure. Go to imsta.org Pensado, imsta.org Pensado, and that's what it'll be. Then truck on down to New York or come up to New York October 20th. We're at AES, and on that Friday, we're interviewing the multi-talented, brilliant Greg Wells. So you can sign up to attend right here at this link you see right below me. It's free, and you don't want to miss Greg. He's absolutely brilliant. Consummate musician, hit maker, mixer, songwriter, and this year's Pensado Giant Award winner. We love Greg Wells. You'll love Greg Wells. Come on, East Coast. Let's connect and hook it up. It's going to be a ball. DP, you got an ITL?
I do.
What do you have?
A snare technique that I think you're going to find really interesting.
Oh, cool.
It's kind of a little different.
Let's run it.
For live snare. Sometimes when I'm working on live drums, I don't find a use for the snare bottom. A lot of times it just gives a more mushy top end to the snares themselves. And a lot of times you can pick that information up from overheads and from toms and things like that. And I was working on a song not too long ago and stumbled across this way to maybe allow us to use the snare bottom a little more. A lot of guys do, probably people better than me do. I just like it better without a lot of times. So let me show you a new way to handle the snare bottom. Here's a little drum part. Okay, no snare bottom mic. Sounds pretty good. Here's just the snare bottom mic without me doing anything to it. You hear when I add the snare mic, the bottom mic, two things. One, you got to always check the phase, because if you don't do anything and use the same two mics, odds are you're going to be out of phase. But it kind of mushes out the sound of the snares. So what I did was add a little Transient Designer. Actually, the first thing I did was shift it a little forward in time, because it felt like it was getting the information late. So we'll just throw that on. That's not a big deal. It's not doing much. Now, the Transient Designer. So we're shortening up the decay time because we're adding a little bit to the time. Add a little reverb of your choice. D stands for Dave. I don't know if you know that. Okay, now here's the cool stuff. I'm adding a little bit of Harmonizer. So pitch shift, let's just say. I'm detuning 4 cents and on one side and 1 on the other. Got a no modulation, a little bit of delay, just to widen it. Now check this out. Pretty cool, huh? I cheated a little bit. I don't want to show you that, but did a little bit of EQ. So listen. So there you go. The thing to remember from all this is the pitch changing and the delay times. They don't have to be 12 and 14 or anything other than just what sounds good. I was fishing around and those two numbers sounded good to me. I prefer them to be different so that I get a little bit of a more stereo vibe. So check it out. You can do that on overheads. You can do it on any percussive instruments. And as you notice, I've paralleled into it. Find new uses. Let me know.
Our guest is a beast. YouTube, thank you. You've seen part 1. Here's part 2 of our great discussion with Luke Laird.
A couple of things. I notice a lot of times when I'm working with an artist that's well known, they like to use my room to listen to demos that have been sent. And I'll be sitting there and I'm like, oh man, that sounds like something she should do. And that's the one they hate the most. It always is like that. When you're writing, do you write with an artist in mind, or do you write just to write a great song and then later find the artist?
It's different.
I'm not talking about when you're given an assignment to write for somebody.
Sure, okay. Yeah, for me, most times I don't write with a particular artist in mind. It's just, it immediately, a lot of times puts barriers. Sometimes it's good to have an assignment because then I know exactly what I'm focused on. It's like a challenge and I want to deliver, but a lot of times when I'm writing, I'll get like a verse and a chorus done, and then I may think, oh, you know who this might work for, and I'll kind of keep it in the back of my mind. And we always, at least in Nashville, know kind of who's looking for songs, so probably there's a little bit of that comes in, but for the most part, it's hard for me to, I probably wouldn't be a good like TV writer or something because it's hard I have to go, what do I feel like today? And like kind of feel like I'm being really creative.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, try to let Beth and the other people that I work with decide who it should go to.
Mm-hmm. Do you sing your own demos?
Some of them. If I don't have to, I'd rather not. I feel like if I write by myself, I usually do. Most other times, I work with a lot of really good singers. I can carry a tune and get it across, but
do you play something else besides guitar?
I play enough piano to write on as well.
So those are the two instruments that you would write on. Gotcha. Gotcha. So that you know, if you have questions, we're going to have a Q&A period. So be thinking about things. If you want to ask any of us, we'll do that. Somebody will cue me at what time the Q&A should be. And apparently we're supposed to get like loopy afterwards and just get lit and hang out. So
Jaeger bomb.
I know that's why you all really here. There's like some free shit to drink from YouTube and Google. I'm not mad at you. We like YouTube. YouTube's sly. We're good with that, right?
I got me a T-shirt.
You also have created a substantial or significant business that you run with your wife, and you have some great folks with you that are writers and artists and so on and so forth. Was that always a part of the plan? Was that sort of the natural evolution? Would that give you sort of more control? What was the impetus for it?
That, for me, that was not part of the plan. Not that I was against it. I just never even. I just moved here to be a songwriter, and I was hoping that I could get a publishing deal. And if that happened, my life would be made. And still, the day I got offered my first publishing deal for $12,000 a year, I thought, man, I'm going out tonight.
We're rocking. Absolutely.
So, once Beth and I got together, we met in the music business, and it's such a sweet little love story. I always tell people she couldn't keep her hands off me, but she's only human,
That sounds like a song. It sounds like 2 songs.
But that's a good point.
Gotcha.
I'm only. So Beth and I, really, it was her that. Not that it wasn't necessarily her idea, like we should go start a business, but it was the 2 of us together just talking and encouraging each other. And she definitely comes from more of the business side of things. And we got to a place where I'd had just enough success that I could sell a catalog, and she was working at BMI at the time. And we thought this will be a good time for us to start our own thing, because she did love working with songwriters and artists, and I love encouraging and helping newer writers and artists. So we're like, this could be a great time for us to start our thing and take the things that we've learned from the companies we've worked at, the good things and the bad things,
absolutely.
And try to build this company in the way that really we want to do it.
What's the name of the company? Who are some of the?
It's called Creative Nation, and we have, I think, 11 songwriters right now, and some of those are songwriter and artist, as well as a couple producers. But a few of the people we have, Barry Dean, Natalie Hemby, Lori McKenna.
She just won a big award.
Lori just won ACM Songwriter of the Year. So that was a really big deal. And she's also an artist who actually, Dave Cobb produced her last album.
That's right.
So, and then just different genres as well. Tyler Johnson, who is one of our writer-producers. He worked on the Harry Styles record.
Nice.
So we kind of, we just try to find writers and artists that we just love. And fortunately, all those people are just great people as well. So it's a joy to work.
How do you find the referral on the internet?
Yeah,
Way you can?
mostly. Yeah, it's just a lot of word of mouth, and a lot of it is just people we've known or through, other people or people that I'm a fan of.
When and I got a 2-part question. When and why should you get a publishing deal? Because not everybody's going to have going to need one. And then if you do need one, what are 3 things you need to have under your belt before you're worth having a publishing deal? So when and why?
When? Well, I mean, I think it depends on what your goals are. The great thing about a publishing company is, I know for me, when I got my first publishing deal, it was just to have the in, because it's going to be really hard for somebody to hear your song without kind of just a credible name. So if you're an unknown writer like I was, getting a publishing deal meant all of a sudden somebody who had credibility was taking my songs to these A&R people and these producers and these artists. So that's definitely a good time. Now, and also, if you just have a ton of money and don't have to take an advance from somebody, you may not need a publishing deal, but that's only if you have the connections as well, because without an in or knowing those people, it doesn't matter. You can have $1 zillion, but nobody's going to take you seriously because it's not coming from somebody who's a trusted source.
Give me,
Go ahead.
Give me 3 things that you need to have in place before you need to go get a publishing deal. Should you have something at least somewhat known? Maybe a C-level artist has cut one of your songs, or what do you need before you're ready for a publishing company to invest in you?
I know for me, it's just, you just have to have high quality material, and not just 1 or 2 songs, but a good number, because a publisher, at least in our situation, if you're looking to be a full-time songwriter, is trying to look for somebody who's not only great, but is productive. Did they just write 2 songs last year and they're just shopping those 2 songs all year, or are they actually getting up and writing every day? Yeah. So I think that first of all, quality. Second of all, I don't want to necessarily say quantity, but just a work ethic, productivity. Because I also know a lot of amazing songwriters, but they're just not willing to put the work in.
Yep.
And to do it as a professional and get paid for it, you have to get up and do it even on those days you're not inspired, unless you're just a big artist who can afford, have other sources of income.
On average, and if you don't have an answer, just make something up. On average, how many songs do you have to write to get one top 25 placement? Let me guess. 45.
Do I have to write?
Yeah, not him.
I suck at math. I don't know. I write probably a year, 150 songs.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the better songwriters that we've known in our life, it's their job. They happen to love their job, so they get up, go write a song, or spend a couple days writing a song, then take a break and go, and then get up again and write more songs. And that's kind of what you do. And if you do a publishing deal, part of your deal is going to be tied to your productivity. They're going to say, okay, we've done a deal, and here's your advance, and you need to turn in 15 songs over the course of our whatever the number may be. And then if you don't, you sort of get into this kind of limbo land with the publisher.
Let me put it this way. I know, so say, I could be off 20 songs one way or another. Last year, I probably wrote 150 songs. And that's with other people as well. I didn't write 120, 100% songs, but with either me and one other person or two other people. So most of my songs are 2 ways or 3 ways. Say I wrote that many. I think I had a great year last year. And I mean, for me, I had 3 #1 songs, which that's really if you ever would have told me I would have had that. And I think maybe I had a couple other singles as well. So maybe at the most, maybe 6, maybe 7 singles, maybe. And a couple of those probably didn't even do that well. So if you take 150 songs, and I had a great year and 3 really big hits. So
there's your averages.
It takes a lot of songs.
Yeah.
And that's typical.
Well, it's a gig. Yeah, I mean, just like you get up every day.
But that's why it goes back to you have to be passionate about it. Because if you just looked at the numbers, you'd be like, why am I wasting my time? But that's also the great thing about getting to do this, because you wake up and you just never know.
Well,
I could write something that could win a Grammy.
But you can't sit down and write a great song. They just fall out in one of the. It's like hunting for diamonds. Not everyone's a perfect gem, but you got to hunt for a lot of diamonds. Or in my case, I can't go past a trash pile without going and seeing what's in it.
Do you have a metal detector?
That may be more information.
They don't always produce results. Like you can find an old microwave and fix it and give it to a friend for Christmas.
Is that where you found your shirt?
Isn't that funny?
You're seeing more of Dave than you ever thought you would know. Talk to Chongor and I afterwards.
Okay, how about this? How about this for a metaphor? You got to kiss a lot of frogs to get a great record. It's a mixed metaphor, but it kind of works.
I've never heard that before. So now that we're off the rails completely, we'll Q&A in about 10 minutes, so get ready for that. So now we're in a business where the infrastructure that used to be is now different. So streaming means this to some, and it means something to some other people. Record companies for some people are evil empires, and it's all about being indie and so on and so forth. Sometimes it's about posting music yourself, and where does that go? There's all kinds of sort of different rules, correct? As you see the business and moving forward, and as Beth sees the business, I've negotiated with your wife, and I came out of it bruised. I just want you to know. And it was just for an appearance here.
She's rough, yeah.
Oh, no, I was like, oh, shit, okay, Mrs. Laird, I'm happy. I don't even have to come to Nashville. Luke can just interview himself. But what I like about, and what I think is important for you guys to know, is that if you're not business-oriented, which is okay, and you're just purely creative, know somebody that you can go get information from. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
It is hard to navigate this sort of blindly creatively. It's changing all the time. We were talking earlier, and when you look back in history and think about the Industrial Revolution or automation age or whatever the case may be, those were things that happened and then kind of settled down, and the world kind of got back to equilibrium and moved forward. We think that with technology, it's just going to constantly change. it's never going to be so. There's new technology every day. And one of the things we found, which is why music took a hit, is music files were easy to move around. So Silicon Valley uses music in all kinds of different ways, some not so cool, but some that give you opportunity. So it's really important that you're just aware. I'm not saying you have to become a record guy or a music person, but you have to be aware of where you're going because it will help your strategy. And when your strategy is working, it helps your creativity. Mm-hmm. So don't ignore it. If it's not you, find somebody. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. You know, I think Jody Williams, who's just a really great guy here in Nashville and has ran great companies and is actually the head of BMI over there right now. Mm-hmm. I think he told Beth when she worked for him that music and business were never meant to go together. That's why there's always this constant thing. You know, the you know, creativity and commerce, and so that's why. But also, I'm very grateful that I can make a living doing it, and I do think it's very important to at least have an awareness. I mean, the fact that you guys are even here at something like this, first of all, you're probably not learning anything from me, but just be willing to go out and seek out that knowledge. And even if you're a creative person, you're like, well, I just write songs and do that. That's fine. But if you want it to be part of the business that you do, it's good to educate yourself a little bit. That doesn't mean you have to go and do every single class or everything, because that's not how your time's best spent. But like Herb said, know somebody, and some people in the business, on the business side of things, because they can really benefit you in the long run. Mm-hmm. I know for me, having my business manager and my attorney are two of the biggest assets I have. They're also, I also pay them a lot of money.
Absolutely. So
every time I look at that, I'm like, oh my, do I really need this? But yes, I do need it. Otherwise, it'd be really bad. So.
Also, never do anything yourself you can pay somebody else to do. Figure out what you're worth an hour and see how much it's.
That's such great advice.
And I'm blessed. Herb looks out for me in just about every area of my life because I'm a cripple in those areas, and I give him full autonomy and authority to do that because he does it really well. I trust him, and I would screw it up so bad. He's a bargain at twice the price, and
let me renegotiate.
I talked to my attorney.
Who is my attorney because I picked him. So.
Yeah, but seriously, you know, he earns a living writing songs. I earn a living mixing records. Now that's my income. So why would I spend time washing the car? Why would I spend time mowing the lawn? Well, because every once in a while you want to do that, and I support that. Every once in a while you want to just get away from your work, you know. But by and large, it frees you to do what you do. Frees you up to do what you do better. So, you know, give us some thought. Give us some thought.
So whoever has a question, why don't you get in line and we'll call you and get you something. Everybody's embarrassed now. Like, oh hell no.
Nobody wants to actually stand up and.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that was an aggressive. You must play with the Predators or some shit. Like you.
Grant, what's up?
All right, go ahead. Ask away.
Well, this is kind of a question for all three of you, but mostly Luke. How do you feel about your relationship as a writer in regards to things in the studio? Mm-hmm. In relationship, do you like to go to the studio? Do you like to be present? You know, if there's an artist cutting your song and you're just like, I hate what you're doing, or how do you handle that?
As far as that goes, when an artist records my song, if I'm not hired as the producer on that project, I'm pretty good at letting things go. Obviously, there's been cuts I've had that I'm like, oh, I don't know if I would have done that. But a lot of times, at first where I thought you were going with that is like being in the studio as far as with the writing and the overall sound of the record. I do like to take part. Sometimes if we're in with an artist, you may be working on the record and you don't know yet, or it may just be the demo. But I really, this is something that I've done over probably the last 10 years. I used to just say, I'm just a songwriter. I'd write my song, and then the production would kind of be secondhand. And I think that I didn't like how a lot of those songs came out. So I like to really take charge in the studio as far as I'll find what are those musical hooks as well as lyrical hooks. So I spend time on finding whether it's a guitar riff thing or a synth thing, and I kind of want the whole thing to be wrapped up in a bow, and then if I'm not the producer at the end of the day, that's okay, but I want to just lay it out on a platter and try to make it sound as great as possible.
Thanks for your question. Next person. By the way, while he's getting ready, can we just say thanks to the ladies who've come, who are interested in audio, want to do audio, Ladies bring something very special to this business, instinctively, creatively, from a passion standpoint, in every area. You can be Beth as a business person. You can work with brands as A&R folks. You can be the producer, the engineer. Dave and I have always really encouraged making sure that women are part of what can be a really heavily male-dominated thing. So I just wanted to thank you guys for coming, because also to be here with a bunch of dudes and no ladies,
smell bad.
It's just not happening. So thank you for that. Anyways, you.
All right, so this might be more of a question of opinion for Luke and more of a technical question for Dave and Herb.
Okay.
But with a lot of these newer music companies and some old, really established ones really pointing their sights on things like innovations in AI and machine learning as far as tools for, the workhorses of the music industry, the audio engineers, the writers, and the producers. Do you think that this opens up a bright future in where less time has to be spent to achieve the same result, or do you think all of our jobs are at risk?
That's a great question, and I don't know the definite answer, but I think you can look at it both ways. I do think the one thing about music, and think about when computers first came out, everybody's like, oh no, this is going to kill music, and it created a whole new genre of music. The thing about music, it can be very technical and mathematical, but great music, there's always a soul to it. And whether you call it like the soul or a magic, I think that there's always going to be need, and I could be just just dreaming right here, but always a need for the human element in music, even if you're doing computer music. But I think with mixing and everything, because what makes every song different, every mix different, the sound of records different is we all have access to the same technology, but it's the human element that's brought in and how us as humans interpret those. So I still think, while yes, just like in other industries, probably some jobs may be at risk, there's always going to be a need for humans in music.
Tell them about your 12-note thing that you spoke about today at the Blackbird.
I just made that up. I don't know what I said.
Well, just repeat it. If it's a lie, it's even better.
Get me started and I'll get it.
You basically said, somebody asked about a musical question and innovation. You said
okay.
It's the same 12 notes.
Yeah.
There are always going to be something that you...
Yeah, we all manipulate the same 12 notes. And I think that, I don't exactly remember what I said, but I welcome artificial intelligence. AI is going to be a wonderful thing because we control it. A lot of people try to separate the parts of the technology space into good and bad. There's no such thing as good or bad technology. It's just different cards in the deck. If you want to win at poker, you got to use all the cards in the deck. You don't have to use them on every song. You can use them in the course of 10 years. You might use all of them, and there might be a few jokers you don't use. So I think that what I'm paid to do is creatively manipulate those 12 notes in such a way, and Luke does this better than me in my line of work, in such a way that's going to give you an experience. And so if you talk to any of my assistants, I don't think I've ever touched a patch bay in the last 30 years. That's not what I'm paid to do. I'm not paid to set gear up. I'm not paid to set my sessions up. I'm paid to walk into my studio, sit down and be creative and take the vision that the producer and the writer and the artist had for that song and finish the mix part of that vision. And that's what I'm paid to do. And if artificial intelligence helps me to do that on any level, I welcome it because it'll help me to do a better job. I have limitations as a human, but artificial intelligence might give me 5 or 6 or 20 different options, and I might listen to each one and choose one, and then take that to the next level. There's ways that you can use technology to benefit you. Don't just whine about it and be a 70-year-old guy with a VCR on his table still blinking 12. Be an early adopter of all the technology. I was using the box in 1992. I only had 2 tracks. It was called Sound Designer. It wasn't even called Pro Tools then. And one of my biggest clients, Babyface, I got a job with him because I was using it to fly in vocals. At that time, flying vocals in background vocals was just a torture. So don't be afraid of the technology. Master the technology, master it early on, and then you can work forever because.
And let me add something to that. We at the show, Pensado's Place, have suffered because of that. And here's what I mean by that. Dave just underscored how we look at change, which is we tend to say, well, let's check out the people and let's check out the process and what their intent is, and then we'll decide if we're going to support it or not. And sometimes our audience gets really pissed at us for doing that, in particular with a company called Laird. And in the mastering space, people are so sensitive about the mastering space, it is amazing to me. Now, here's the issue, because we got a bunch of other people want to ask. It wasn't a question of whether we're saying we support this or not support this. We think it's important that you investigate, see what's there. Technology has to evolve. The first iteration may not be it, may not be the second, may be the 10th. And at some point in time, for those who are mad because of what it does to the traditional business, or we're trying to figure out, because a whole lot of people, particularly post houses and other things, find it to be a great tool, but it has to find its thing, and let alone what we have to do for the economics of the show, we're more curious about bringing you cutting edge things, and if it doesn't work, we'll move on. Now, people get really inflamed and passionate with us, and we sort of take that hit, but I don't think you can be tech workers and then be sort of tech agnostic and go, oh no, I'm above tech. How could that, right? Do you think?
It's so true.
So be open to it. It's a great question, and give it to the next guy. Thank you for the question, man.
Yes, thanks.
So this question's for you, Luke. I was just curious, as far as, like you mentioned before, your pub deal and before you came here and got that first deal, what was kind of, like you said, I mean, I'm sure at the time back then you weren't writing as many as you do now, but with the songs you were writing, was it holding on to a bunch at a time? Was it having your friends play them? Was it, like, how were you getting those songs out before you got that pub deal?
Okay, so I didn't even have, all I had was a 4-track cassette recorder. And those demos sucked. So I didn't even want to play it. So the way I would get those songs out is I literally played Songwriter nights here in Nashville. There was a place, it's still there, I think, but unless you want to get murdered, it's called the Broken Spoke Saloon, which not like it was just like a fine dining establishment back then, but
now you tend to like.
There's a few places in town. For me, it was like I would just get up there and sing and play my songs. If you don't sing, maybe you have a friend who does, and now there's great access. I would say when you finish a song, at least have a good guitar vocal or piano vocal or something like that. This is just within Nashville. Unless your goal is to be signed as producer as well, then like the production as good as it can be. But now it's just so easy to just send a link to people, and that's, I'm sure, what I would have done back then. If I met a publisher, they would have said, send me a link to your songs. But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
Have a game plan.
Can I toss something in? I do remember this from earlier today. My opinion is if you read a way to do something or you're told a way to do something, it's probably best not to do it and find a different way. The tried and traditional pathways to success, there's a lot of traffic there. So try and find, it can work, but try and find a pathway that's new, that's unique, that no one else has used. And if you're creative, I overheard, I was in a meeting with a real famous guy in the business named Clive Davis, and the songwriter was asking him, if I write a great song, how do I get it to you? And he said, well, if you're smart enough to write a great song, you're smart enough to get it to me. So I think that's the advice I'd give you.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, guys. So my question is actually about points where your career has evolved. So you've all been doing it long enough. I've been teaching audio engineering at MTSU for 7 years, and then I've been at Belmont for the last 8 years.
Oh, wow.
So I'm now getting to the point where a lot of my students are getting to midpoint career arcs, and they're having to figure out what they're going to do. Maybe they first chased the audio thing, but then they figured out they love songwriting. But you just change over time. How have you guys encountered that as you've experienced change in your life, and how did you get over that hump?
I don't know how many of you are familiar with an artist named Vincent van Gogh, but he was a brilliant man. He wasn't the dumbass that's portrayed in here in America. He was a well-educated, gifted man, and he said, never trust the time you're without difficulties. Difficulties, as Herb said earlier today, they help you get stronger. So look for ways to anticipate where your career should go, and don't bury your head in the sand and assume that your career is going to last for 50 years, because it won't in the way it was constructed in year one. And just like Luke has changed and morphed and broadened the scope of what he can do, and also sometimes focused it and narrowed it. As the engineering profession has changed, I made a point in 1996 to find the guy that was the most well-known in the digital space, and I did a bunch of free mixes for him to learn the creative uses of Pro Tools in the digital space. His name was Rhett Lawrence. We went on to have several #1 records together. Embrace the technology and look for the new. Change is a good thing. It keeps everything fresh. It weeds out a lot of the weak ones and makes more room for the strong ones. And take it, Herb.
Thank you, Dave. I think, my contribution to that question would be in the stay curious thing. If you're curious and you're hungry,
Absolutely.
Things are going to present themselves to you, and then you choose to do them. Look, in 2011, there was a 55-year-old and a 60-something-year-old. Because of a medical incident, we decided to create a web show on audio engineers that nobody ever fucking thought about. Excuse my French. But that nobody ever fucking thought about. And we were blown away at the success. But we had sort of the courage to try it, and then the resilience to stay. We didn't make any money at it for a couple of years. It's very expensive to do. People think it's free. It's not. And then we created things outside of the show, a worldwide curriculum series, an award show, live events. We're the face of a convention in India, the India NAM for 2018. This YouTube relationship, we're doing a couple things there, stuff. We just decided to take our own advice and kind of go for it. And we're successful because of you guys. I mean, we're the stewards, but we tapped into something, because the reality of it is the information is available other places. We present it differently. We looked at the market and said, well, okay, if Drake's Engineer is Mensa level intelligence, and they did the first 2 albums in hotel rooms because of the duvets, and they got better sound in the hotel rooms, while he had multiple sclerosis. Well, you'll find that story on Pensado's Place, but you're not going to find that in the YouTube thing about parallel compression. And so Luke as a person is as interesting to us and should be as interesting to you, because it informs his creativity and his success. And then Dave and I are goofy, and whatever the relationship is that works, and some of that authenticity. But it was about being curious, because we took a space, and I'll shorten it by saying, nobody in the engineering space was ever in front of a camera. And so our award show, for instance, Dave and I don't come out. We have engineers hosted, and they present it, they do this thing. And you see the people get attention and finally recognized for the work. And it's like, oh, hell, man, we are down with you for that stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? We're here with YouTube. We're here with all you guys. And it's just stunning to us. So in this particular case, we walked the walk of the talk that we talked. We made it. It's been a lot of suffering and so on and so forth. But it's that curiosity, passion thing that happens. So I think instead of worrying about plotting the course, worry about not losing the hunger. Worry about getting the information in. It's not just living in the audio space. You don't know what may come at you that may be an idea. The idea for I'll stop with this one. The idea for, I read a New York Times article 5 years ago, and they were covering the Olympics. And I saw where the Olympics had 27 trucks with Pro Tools on the back of the trucks, and they would go around and capture the audio because they had all these time pressures. Is it ready for broadcast? Is it going to be delayed? Does it have to go with a segment package, and so on and so forth? And I was like, that's the shit we should be covering. Let me go find those stories. So we called George Lucas's ranch. We went up and shot him. We've talked to Saturday Night Live, and they've cleared us to go do that. We started saying, oh, no, let's go all these people in audio, and what we found is they went, hell yeah, we've been waiting for something to talk to. So we're one example of being curious. There's a ton others. Our guests are really the better example. And so we also learn from our guests. Every time somebody's there, it's amazing what we learn. So I would say does that make sense to you?
I got something important.
Very much so.
I want to say something because this is really important. There's never been a moment in music where technology hasn't controlled music. Strong statement. Let me back it up. Back in the 40s and 50s, it was very expensive to have a system to play music. Only wealthy people had stereo. Oh, there's no stereo, but only intelligent people. They were very expensive, and only rich people had it. Along comes this little cheap-ass 45 with a little cheap-ass player. There wouldn't have been no Elvis had there not been the 45. Then along comes this extended play record, and everybody's like, well, that's kind of cool, but I'll take this 8-track. And so every time the industry bets on quality, they get their ass handed to them. We'll keep going. I'll show you. I'm telling you the truth. So now along comes stereo, on and on and on. So stereo produced the ability to have albums. Now we've got artists adapting to that album. Frank Sinatra was one of the first people to adapt to albums. And then we have FM radio. Without FM radio, there would have been no Led Zeppelin. There would have been no progressive rock bands or rock bands of any type. When FM radio came out, it was commercial free. On and on and on. No MTV, no Madonna, no this, no that. It's always been that music is driven by technology, so if you want to get behind, forget that fact. Now, we live in a time where technology is quickly exploding, it seems to us, but it's not. It's just a normal pace. It's always going to do this and always will. So a friend of ours said that the guitar was the folk instrument of the 70s, but the laptop is the folk instruments of the 2000s. That's a bold statement. It's really true. Think about it. So technology always leads music. If you stay behind the technology, you're going to stay behind the music, and you'll be still going and playing your little 45s that Elvis did. So think about it.
Thank you for that, Dave.
Hello.
A smattering of applause for your statement, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. I have a question for Luke. As a songwriter,
Sure.
You guys have a lot of really amazing writers on your at Creative Nation on your roster. Are you looking to sign new artists, or do you focus on more not artists, writers? Are you looking for more established writers? I know you said you like working with newer writers.
Sure.
What's your thought on that?
Well, we do have a good mix of newer writers who. We have multiple writers who have never had a hit on our roster and who haven't had a cut. I think, honestly, I know this is probably boring answer, but we're just looking for quality. And so it could come in the form of a brand new writer who just moved here but has been writing songs for years, and they have something that's unique. We're looking for unique quality. And again, it could be an established writer who we've known about for years, and a lot of times with like the bigger writers, we're not necessarily pursuing them. A lot of times, and I'll brag on my wife Beth, but I think all the bigger writers we have actually approached her about working together. So it's just, and we are a small company, so it just has to be also a good fit who can fit into our system. So it's not. I'm not necessarily. I am always listening to new music. I want to find that brand new thing. Like I want to be part of that, but it's not like one way or the other.
And by the way, in case you missed this is a lady looking out for her career. She's going to find out. She also has on very cool shoes. So we appreciate the work cool. And because you got to, when you have a chance to find out if somebody is interested in your wares, you got to take that opportunity to find out if they're looking. If you don't, you just let it go by. Mm-hmm. Now, what it means for all, I mean, I used to sit on you guys' side of the ledger, and Dave can tell you all kinds of horror stories of how I used to sneak into things and, just come right close to felony level shit. Just there's back in the day, this is before you guys' time, Billboard was a pretty big magazine. And before the internet, which makes it sound so old, but you got stuff out of magazines, right? And so both Dave and I would go use Billboard magazines and try to figure out who the executives were and what their tastes were, what they were looking for. But we had no money, so we would go to newsstands, and they would kick you out if you browsed, unless you seemed like a sleazeball and you went to the porn section. And in the porn section, porn magazines were really big. You could slip a billboard into the porn magazines, and because you were sort of slightly pervy, they would just leave you alone. So I'd take a pen, slip a billboard in, pull out, I don't even want to tell you what porn magazine I pulled out. And I'd be writing down all these notes and slip them back in my pocket and close up the porn magazine and walk away looking slightly relieved. And they would go, oh, he's such a sleazeball. But I turned that into a career move, and I'm sort of proud of that now. But so I'm just telling you, if anybody saw me in the porn section, it wasn't for what you think it was. It was kind of like his song that he wrote when he was 5 years old. Thank you for your question.
She's got a question for us.
Yeah, I've got a couple things.
Lindsay is the badass YouTube lady who we love so most and helped put this on. Give her a round of applause. Lindsay Rothschild. We call her Linz.
So I wanted to say a couple things before we kick off happy hour downstairs. First of all, Luke, 23 number ones. Unbelievable. It's an absolute honor
Stunning.
to have you here.
Round of applause for Luke.
Thank you.
I want to thank you and Beth and the Creative Nation team. You guys are awesome to work with, and we're very grateful to know you guys.
Thank you.
Secondly, Dave, Herb, we met about a year ago. You immediately welcomed me into the Pensado's Place family, just like you do all of your fans. And there's no better place to kick this collaboration, partnership off between YouTube and Pensado's Place than Nashville. There's no better place to congratulate you guys on hitting 100,000 subscribers, actually far beyond, than in front of your fans. So congratulations.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I don't know what to say. Okay, so I'll come up with something. Yeah, exactly. It's on my phone.
Wow, we weren't expecting this. This is kind of cool.
No, we weren't. And I think what happens is that we try to constantly recognize that the success of the show is because of our guests, who are incredible, and because of you guys. Don't you think?
Yeah, a little bit us.
Well, yeah.
Not them. 99% you guys.
We didn't know what we were doing when we started. I think we're in 230 some odd countries and territories. Somewhere around 500, 600,000 people a month watch us. It's been a long journey. It's been a struggle because it's financially gotten more and more expensive, and we just keep giving. And what our bet was, and we hope you appreciate it, is no matter what else we do, we try to make sure the show comes to you for free. And we do that against a lot of resistance. People are like, oh, you could monetize this, you could do this, you could do the audience. And we're like, no, we'll do it some other places. And sometimes that's not to our benefit to do it that way. So the fact that we get this cool-ass piece of thing, by the way, this probably should hang in my place, not yours, but we'll work that out. I try to keep archives.
I'll get the 200, you keep the 100.
No, it's ours. So we're saying a long way, thank you. I think what we're trying to do, just in case you need to know this, is we're trying to listen to the audience and see what changes make sense to us, but also maintain our values. We don't want to be above it. We kind of want to pay attention to the things that people like, things that don't. We're open to ideas. But basically what we're going to try to do is actually bring you a shorter version that's more meaty of the badasses that are in audio, the incredible talent that runs across all genres, that are all genders, and that keep evolving and growing and are amazing, amazing people, and that's really you guys. So we want to thank you. We want you to put your hands together for YouTube, your hands together for the incredible Luke Laird. Thanks to the Pensado team, thanks to the Creative Nation team. Let's hang out and get lit. Thanks. See you in a little bit.
He is every bit as talented as he is nice, isn't he?
Man, it was inspiring, Herb. Being around people that are great at what they do is just makes you want to go out and conquer the world. And that was, boy, what a great example, right?
Hope you guys learned something. See you next week.